So for those of you, all right, for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, I am not the normal chair of the Zoning Commission, but our chair is en route and arriving somewhere and will try to join us by phone, but I'm sort of covering base. And my name is Bill Podelka. I am the chair of the town's planning board and have been a member of the Zoning Commission since sometime late last summer, early fall. We will, as usual, start our meeting with privilege of the floor.
So if you wish to speak, raise your Zoom hand.
Oh, sorry. You know what? I just made a whole nice speech to my blanked off microphone. So I apologize to everyone. I'm going to start again. Thank you for chiming in, Mark. All right. Can everyone hear me now? Yes. Okay, great. Sorry. All right. So for those tuning in for the first time or even for the multiple times, I'm not the normal chair of the Zoning Commission. The normal chair is en route somewhere and will join us by phone if and when she can. But my name is Bill Podelka, and I am the chair of the town's planning board, and I've been serving as a member of the Zoning Commission since sometime late last summer or so. We will, as usual, start our meeting with a privilege of the floor period. We've allotted 20 minutes for that for tonight. And just so you know, so we start with a clean slate at each meeting. So even if you've spoken at a previous meeting, you're welcome to speak to us again. However, within the same meeting, we ask everyone to only speak once unless we have time remaining at the end, and then you can speak a second time. It'll be 3 minutes per person. And does someone, I guess I can use my watch to time. If at the end of this 20-minute period, there's only like 1 or 2 more people wanting to speak, then we'll go ahead and hear from you. But if there's anything more than 2 people, we're going to cut the privilege of the floor off right at the 20-minute period. And we apologize to anyone who doesn't get a chance to speak at the meeting that would like to, and encourage you to submit any comments or questions you have then in writing. You can either jot down a piece of paper and drop it off with someone right there at the meeting in person at the town hall. You can drop them off at the town hall any other time. You can drop them off in some of the boxes we have in town for comments, or you can email them to the commission chair, Jean McFeeters, and her email address is on the Zoning Commission webpage on the town website, or you can email them also to the town clerk. We apologize also for the need to keep a finite time period for privilege of the floor, because we know there's a lot of people who would like to speak. But we just would like you to realize that we are, this is a working meeting of a volunteer board, and I'm afraid that we just have limited time and energy. And so we really do ask that you appreciate the fact that we're going to try to have a working session, and here's a privilege of the floor section. Also, you should be aware that the Zoning Commission will not be answering questions asked during privilege of the floor. And we realize this can be frustrating, and please understand it's plenty frustrating for us as well. But we do this for a few reasons. And one of the main ones is we want to be able to hear from as many of you as possible. In addition, some questions just are hard or not appropriate to answer. They may be technical. We want to make sure we get it right. It may be something that's really not under our jurisdiction, or it may be that it's something that we as a Zoning Commission haven't really discussed thoroughly yet and would not be appropriate for us to sort of make a statement from one person when really the Zoning Commission doesn't have an opinion on that yet. So in general, questions are not getting answered, but I do want to make sure you are aware that there is a meeting coming up in April, as the way the planning currently looks. And the whole purpose of that meeting is to answer questions. So there will be, as at December, some information presented about draft zoning proposals to give some information out to the community. And then the remainder of the time will be dedicated to taking questions and answering them right then and there. So while this meeting doesn't have a lot of questions or back and forth, there is a venue being planned where that will be possible, and that will be coming up in April, and we'll certainly advertise it a lot around town. I also want to make sure that you realize that at privilege of the floor, you're welcome to comment, say whatever you wish within the realm of at least civil behavior. However, I just also want to make sure you're aware of sort of a big division between the town board and the Zoning Commission in terms of sort of what we do. So in terms of why the process of looking at zoning was started and whether it should be started or stopped, whether our work should stop, those are questions for the town board. Questions about the content, those are questions for the zoning commission. So process is best directed to the town board, content best directed to us, but again, you're welcome to do and say whatever it is that you wish to say. That's just the most effective. And let me just note a few more things. I know there's a lot of consternation in the community, and I want to point out that no two zoning laws are alike. They can and do vary tremendously from one community to another. And so I know it probably seems like you're getting the cart before the horse to draft a zoning law before we have some concrete decision about having zoning. But please just reflect on the fact that it's really hard to answer the question, do I like zoning, if we don't all have a common picture of what the zoning is. And so we are in the process of trying to create a zoning plan that is appropriate for Caroline. And what you've heard about in Cayuga Heights or elsewhere is not appropriate for Caroline. So please just think about the fact that what we're trying to do is get something that we can all talk from a common framework on, and then have that debate about whether or not we should have zoning. And lastly, I want to put this draft in some context. Back in December, our zoning commission asked our consultant to draft a zoning plan. And we did that because we felt it would be much easier for us to work on a document where there's some words in front of us, rather than as a committee try to create a draft. What that means, first our consultant did an amazing job taking our musings and thoughts and putting them into a good document. But what it does mean is the draft that was put out, first, you all were seeing it at the same time we all were seeing it for the very first time. And it is a rough draft. It will change a lot from start to finish.
I'm in my meeting.
For that reason, it's going to take a little time. Usually by the time the public starts to pay a lot of attention, that these things reach a level where it's seen by many in the community, they've already been hammered on and worked on by a committee. A lot of the rough edges and things that are unclear have already been smoothed out. That has not happened here. What is happening is that the public, and this is wonderful, is involved at a very early stage in a draft law. And so what you're seeing is a very rough, crude document that will get improved with your input in the future. But again, you don't have to give us any major break here, but I do ask for a little bit of patience on the part of the community that this is a work in progress. It's not about to get passed tomorrow. It's going to take many weeks and months before this is the stage where it's ready for a public hearing. So we're in process. It's early. It's great that you're all here giving us comment now, and we will open up privilege of the floor. Again, 20 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker. If you wish to speak and you're in person at the town hall, you should sign up on the sheet that has been available there. And if you are on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand. I cannot possibly see everyone in attendance, so if you wave your physical hand, I almost certainly won't see you. So please raise your Zoom hand, and then you pop to the top of the list. And we will alternate between people in person attendance and people on Zoom attendance. And I think we will start then with someone who is there in person. So either Ernie or Mark, if you could read the name of the first person. It would be appropriate if whoever's speaking could state their name. Folks often say a little bit about where they're from. At least if you're a resident of the town, would be nice to hear. If you want to share something about where you live, that's great. And then we'll go on from there.
Stand behind the podium, lecture.
All right. So do we have our first speaker, Ernie?
We do.
Yeah, this is Peter Hoyt. I live right in Sladeville. Just one thing, Bill, that you said a few minutes ago that I guess I want to take issue with is that you said that to talk about the draft law in general, not in its specifics necessarily, would be premature until we know everything that's in it. Then we can decide whether or not we want zoning. I think I'm correctly paraphrasing you. This was like 3 or 4 minutes ago. And I take issue with that because lot of us don't want zoning no matter what it is. I mean, it's a binary choice in a sense. And, we object to zoning in principle for a variety of reasons, and they're being published and posted. I won't go through them now. So I just think that it is a mistake to say that, the only question before us is what kind of zoning do we want? I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, and Gene, as Gene has done, I will acknowledge that, what I'm hearing from Pete is no zoning no matter what. I will issue the slight correction. No, I'm not saying that's the only question. I was just explaining why the order was the order in which it was, but I certainly respect the fact that there are many people who want no zoning no matter what. Okay, we'll take Ellen Harrison off of Zoom, and I will ask you to unmute, and hopefully that will enable you to do that. Okay, Ellen, you're not quite unmuted yet.
I can tell you what she's gonna say.
There, that looks better.
Okay, hello. I am not gonna, you may not know what I'm gonna say, whoever said that. It's slightly different tonight. We've all faced a significant challenge over the last 2 years dealing with COVID in many ways and times and places. And it's been certainly a challenge for government boards, commissions, agencies who are in the public trust. Then they have to be open to the public. And with COVID, it forced a rethinking of how we do that. And so Zoom has become a very important potential way of meeting and going to meetings. And we think of that as being limiting, which it would for people who have bad internet. And I hope we're able to solve that problem. But for many people, I would say probably most people, it's actually a benefit, meaning you don't have to drive at night, which is increasingly challenging for some of us. You might have responsibilities at home with children or parents or spouse, and being able to attend a meeting from home can make the difference of whether you can go or not. So yeah, I'm traveling right now. I'm visiting my sister out of town, and I can join you from afar. So I don't think we should think of Zoom as making it more difficult for people. I actually think it's enabled many more people to participate in government. So thank you.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Ellen. I heard that you say there are while the Zooming is a problem for some sectors of our community, it is also a benefit to others. So thank you for that. I think we have then someone else from the town hall.
We have no other people on our list.
Okay. All right, then I see hand being raised, 2 hands being raised on Zoom here now. So I will recognize Brock, and yeah, Brock, if you can just introduce yourself quickly.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Brock Gibeon. I'm a landowner on Deputron Hollow Road in Brooktondale. I did want to echo some previous commenters. I have absolutely no internet service, so I am calling in from a different location. I wanted to really, echo some of the other comments and really caution any types of major changes. I purchased this land really for the rural nature and to allow more flexibility. I didn't want to live in the city where all of the zoning and certainly trying to build a home for my family. I was told that it will only add costs. And after talking about this zoning change with my architect, it will certainly add costs to me and my family. I think the need for zoning or a requirement for zoning is not really a true fact. I think if you look at some of the academic literature around the city of Houston in particular, where there's millions of people and no zoning, they've done just fine. And I think, in particular, in relation to rolling out future services such as broadband, I wonder how zoning will play an effect on that. Will broadband and will internet access only go to the commercial districts with this new zoning plan, or will it be actually equal and how it should be? The last comment is, I think, Caroline, and this is a small town. I've been trying to get, for example, a new address for 6 months, and we don't even have a building official. So how is zoning going to be a quick, efficient process for someone like me to build a business or build a home? Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Brock. And yeah, we acknowledge that some people don't have good broadband like you out there, and you're wondering about the effects that zoning might have on the rollout of broadband. And definitely emphasize that you would not want to see too many changes because you came here because of you like the way it is, and that there are some areas, certain communities in or around Houston that don't have zoning and have done fine. So thank you for those comments. Is there anybody else now at the town hall who would like to speak?
No.
All right, anybody else via Zoom who would like to speak? Okay, John Morse, I'm sending an ask to unmute. All
Check,
right,
check.
Yep, you're
Can you hear
set.
me? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to say, love Brock's comment about choosing to come here for the freedoms. So that's nice. Some thoughts on zoning from me. Zoning such as this proposal in a rural community like Caroline, in my opinion, is nothing more than a selfish land grab. It will eventually do nothing more than force out the less privileged and create a community that fosters elitism and maybe even white privilege, as it puts a priority on someone's view driving up Route 79, which is already full of businesses, over the needs of many residents who would benefit from a low-cost local option to buy groceries without a 15 or 20-minute drive, or a struggling farmer who needs to diversify as the tax rates climb and small-scale farming becomes less viable. Rural zoning is selfishness at its core. A desire to control others' property by mostly people who have not themselves worked the land to give it the rural character they claim to desire, and by people who want to remove the farmers and other taxpayers' options for their own self-interest. Your zoning plan is not one of safety or streamlining traffic patterns as in a city. It is a plan of selfishness and privilege. A government's main job is to keep people safe. It's not to create laws that unnecessarily limit people's freedoms in order to serve the selfish desires of others who are not being harmed. Rural zoning will expedite the demise of Caroline's rural character, not save it. Caroline is great because of its diversity. Diversity of business, residential, farm, low and high income families, but zoning will create a sanitizing effect and ultimately a conformity where eventually everyone has a 3+ acre lot with a beautiful colonial on it, a perfect suburb of Ithaca. Zoning will increase taxes by minimizing growth while increasing cost as we pay to enforce 130+ pages of land ordinance while increasing lot sizes, discouraging new businesses and steering our community straight towards higher income households who can afford the larger lot sizes in conformity. Creating this perfect suburb of Ithaca will actually increase the loss of agricultural property and farms in Caroline instead of preserve it. As farming continues to become more difficult to sustain a living and the low-income small farmers will no longer afford the higher taxes, farmers will sell off land at faster rates and in larger 3-acre minimum chunks to high-income transplant families looking to escape the city. Eventually, the influx of privileged families will complain that there are no local grocery stores, pizza shops, or other resources, and they will petition to change the zoning to allow more of the same stores and businesses that zoning law was put in place to prevent in the first place. The farms will be gone long before their time. Elitism and white privilege will have won again, and there will be no room in Caroline for the 4th-generation resident who only wanted to put a small home or mobile home on a small corner of his family's 150-year legacy farm and work the fields for minimum income because he enjoys it. There will be no place for him, but at least we stopped the Dollar General on Route 79 and you didn't get 21 cars per day on your private road.
You have about 15 more seconds.
There are storage units in front of our wedding business. This is my last bit. Something we never wanted there, something brides often struggle with when they first visit our business. But I can promise you that all the days I've considered how these units are not best for me, not once ever did I think that it was my business to try to stop them from being built. Never. That is the
Okay, please
difference
wrap up.
between someone like myself and those who are in favor of zoning.
Okay, thanks. So, John, I certainly heard you say that you feel that zoning is selfish and a land grab and will favor the rich over the poor and force out the less privileged. and that you think you have concerns over limiting commercial opportunities, and that zoning will actually ruin the rural character of Caroline. So, all right, thank you everyone for your comments. I think we're then done. We have enough time. Let's see. Yeah, so we have another 5 minutes or so. Looks like Robin, I saw raise a physical hand. Luckily, I saw that. So first, let me make sure there's no one at the town hall who wants to speak. Mark, or anybody at the town hall want to speak?
No,
Okay, so Robin, I'm going to send you an unmute request, and hopefully that's going to work for you.
Oh, good evening. I hadn't planned to speak. I am deeply upset at these allegations of elitism and privilege that I want to preserve my housing, the community that I selected to join some years ago. You want to talk about privilege? I don't know who owns all of the properties on 79 that someone is dying to develop, but it is not going to preserve the community that I bought in to join. That's all. I support the zoning. I think it is reasonable and very carefully thought out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robin. So again, I heard you say that you're upset and disagree with the allegations of elitism, and that indeed, in your opinion, not having zoning is what will ruin the real character of this area, and that you appreciate the hard work on the plan.
I don't know if I can add something.
I think you have, we'll give you another 30 seconds, sure.
Thank you. I've been around Ithaca long enough to remember when the village of Lansing separated from the town of Lansing over similar issues. I hope we can work beyond that so that we don't need a separation. But the people in the village of Lansing who are being squeezed by development had to separate in order to preserve their character of living from the more rural town. I understand those conflicts, but we need to work through them, certainly without accusatory and, derisive language like elitism.
Okay, thank you. And I heard you refer to the historical situation with the village of Lansing and the town of Lansing and conflicts over zoning. Again, going back to the town hall, there's still no one there.
Correct.
Then,
No.
okay, so then we'll take at least one more. We've got time for at least one or two more. Then we'll take We Protest Zoning. I will send an ask to unmute to you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, it's Holly McGee. Good evening, lovely zoning commission. I have a suggestion that I think will work delightfully in the updated zoning draft. I think Jean and the other committee members will really like this recommendation that I've come up with. I'm not looking for a comment from you at this time. I'm only asking that you simply sit there, listen, and maybe take a few notes on this. My comment again pertains to the linkages or access trail section in the zoning draft, page 28, section 4.2, specific standards by zoning district. I really think the best and most reasonable approach to start the linkages and access trails would be to have the first access point run straight through Mark Whitmer's land on Yapel Road. The second access trail should run through Jean McFeeder's backyard, and the third trail should cut across Tim Murray's front lawn. Let's start this unwanted form of trespassing with the people who are pushing this zoning in the first place. I wonder if you all would like random strangers trampling through your yards. It didn't seem to matter to you when it was our lands and our yards at jeopardy, but now that the tables have turned, I wonder if you are so inclined to keep this section for the next draft. Let's be clear on this entire topic of zoning though, because this isn't the only section of the draft that needs repairs, it's the entire thing. We, the residents of this town, do not want any form of zoning whatsoever. We have told you this time and time again, yet you continue on with the draft. Jean, you yourself told me that you and the zoning commission are all volunteers. So this means you could stop working on the draft at any time. Yet you choose to push forward with this, even though you know most of the town's residents are highly against it. This also makes me very suspicious of you and your motives. Why are you doing this? And what's in it for you? Furthermore, what's in it for the rest of the zoning commission and what's in it for the town board? Heck, I'm still trying to figure out who on God's green earth you gave your word to that takes precedence over the concerns of the residents of this town. You may have given your word, Jean, but that was before you knew the residents were highly against zoning. Your word means nothing to us except the fact that you are overstepping by meddling with our livelihoods. That's not something you do to a community that has been begging you time and time again to stop with this. To be honest, this is the most messed up thing I've ever witnessed. This town is now not asking you, but telling you that your service as volunteers is no longer wanted or needed here. We did not ask you for your help, and we were not consulted prior to your starting with this. Just because you're a volunteer doesn't mean you can't be terminated. Now, do the appropriate thing, all of you. Step down
15
now
seconds.
before you cause more havoc in Caroline. This town was perfect before you all started, and now it's a mess. What do you think will happen when zoning passes? It's not going to improve the situation for what, that's for sure. With all of that being said, of course, my final statement is no zoning needed, no zoning wanted. Thank you.
Okay, Holly, thank you for those comments. Obviously, I heard you talk again about the linkages trails and that no zoning, whatever is needed in Caroline, and that you have suspicions about the motivations of the zoning commission members and of the town board members. And that in your opinion, a vast majority of the town is against zoning. All right. We have time for one more speaker if anyone else would like to speak. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to, okay, since John Morse like to speak again, and I did promise a second opportunity if there was time. At this point, John, there's about 2 minutes left in privilege of the floor.
Thank you. I only have like 15 more seconds. I just wanted to finish my last paragraph.
Go ahead.
I'm looking for it. Basically, I was saying at the end that there's storage units in front of our wedding business, something that we never wanted there. Brides struggle with when they first visit our business. And I can promise you that after all the days I've considered how these units are not best for me personally, not once did I ever think that it was my business to try to stop them from being built. Never. It's the difference between someone like myself that is not in favor of zoning and those who are in favor of zoning and have a selfish desire to tell others what to do on property they don't themselves pay taxes on. I'll also say that I have one of the best neighbors possible right out front, who has done nothing but kind things for us and who I am grateful to have. Further, I'll say that Caroline has forever been changing, forever. Forest was cleared by farming, farms have come and gone and come again. Fields have regrown into forest again. Businesses have come and gone and will continue to do so. There's a natural ebb and flow that has naturally created the very character of Caroline that we all enjoy today. Zoning will stop that natural process and forever change our town and its character. No zoning needed, keep Caroline free. Thank you for letting me finish.
Okay, you're welcome, John. Okay, so that will conclude privilege of the floor. And if I pull out the agenda, so again, thank you all for sharing your thoughts. I mean, this is what this is for, and we appreciate hearing from each and every one of you.
Hey, Bill,
Yes.
I think it's worth noting.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, Patrick, this, this is the end of privilege of the floor. If, we are not taking further comments. I just can't allow it. I'm sorry. Okay. Next up on the agenda is approval of the minutes, but I first want to offer a possible amendment to the agenda. So as many of us are aware, there definitely are some misunderstandings of what the zoning proposal contains. And some of that has to do with language that's unclear. Some of it has to do with, again, examples from other communities that aren't necessarily relevant here. I am proposing, and this is the agenda item that we would discuss, that the zoning commission create a, whatever it is, 1 or 2 pager of sort of like what we have seen in the comments as common, maybe misconceptions about the zoning proposal for Caroline. And we'll discuss this more at the time, but the intent would be to have that available at whatever venues, our public meeting, anything else where it could be handed out as information content. What I am proposing is that at the conclusion of the planning committee report, that we have a brief discussion of what such a thing would be and whether we think it's worth creating before we delve into our work on the actual draft law. Does anyone want to second that discussion, the motion to have a discussion of that?
This is Barb. I'll second it, and but I'll also amend that with a time limit of 5 minutes for that discussion.
Happily done. I think that's a very wise suggestion. So, all right, so we're just going to vote on whether we add that agenda item limited to 5 minutes. All those on the planning board who are in favor, geez, I don't know, I guess I can see everybody. You can just wave your hands or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ernie's up, Michelle's up, and I can't, you know what, I can't see the actual town hall image right now because it's showing the podium.
Okay, sorry. Bill.
You know, all right, so we had enough votes to pass. I don't know how Bruce voted on that.
I didn't even understand what you said, Bill, so.
Okay, so we just decided to, I think, you know, however, we decided to have a discussion and then it will be more clear and to be decided whether we even make it or not. That's a discussion. Okay, so next up is approval of the minutes from February 22nd. And I know that Barb, you had at least one edit to those. So let's start with that.
Yeah, thanks. The one edit on the second last paragraph in the minutes where it was discussing home occupations, there was a report of a discussion about the number of employees that would qualify as either a minor home occupation or a major home occupation. And so the change is to change to reflect the discussion, that the discussion, as we recall from that meeting, was 3 or less for a minor home occupation and more than 3 for a major home occupation.
Okay, so that correction duly noted. And you also know that the next sentence ends in the middle of itself.
And I don't know how it was supposed to end, so I can't amend that.
Right. Okay, so, you know, I don't know what's appropriate. Should we just pass these with the assumption that Jean will fill in the missing phrase, or do we hold off on approving the minutes? Someone tell me what the right parliamentary thing to do is.
I move that we accept the minutes with the understanding that Jean will finish the sentence when she has a chance.
All right. All those in favor of doing as Barb has just suggested, please either raise your hand or say aye.
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 Okay, so the minutes are approved with that one thing to be added. Tim Murray, Town Council report.
Hi, everyone. The town board will meet tomorrow night for its March business meeting at 7 p.m. During that meeting, we will discuss plans to hold some public sessions sponsored by the town board in March so that the public can give input about its overall sentiments regarding zoning. The number and location of those meetings is yet to be determined.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. So planning committee report, well, gee, that's me. So what I can say is that the battery law, the battery energy storage system law is on the desk of the town board. So the planning board has finished its work on that law, and that is now in front of the town board, and they will take action on it when that seems appropriate to them. And that's the end of that report. Okay, so next we get to the item we just inserted, which is discussing for 5 minutes. So I have us at 8 minutes to 8 on my watch. Creating whether we or not we should create a sheet that would try to lay out some of, you know, what appears to be sort of sticking things that people don't always understand, again, because the draft is rough, some things are unclear, sometimes examples from other communities are brought in. So whether we should have something that helps clear the air for what the Caroline draft has in it. And indeed, one of the possible venues for distributing it would be at one of these community sessions that the town board would hold. And we could certainly have it on the zoning commission website, and it could be also available at our next public information meeting. So that would be the intent if we thought that was a valuable thing to do. So I'm now taking comment on whether we think this is an advisable thing to create. It is coming up now because I think we would probably want to create it soon. Okay, Michelle.
I guess my question is, how would it differ from the frequently asked questions document that we have already up there and that was also distributed, I think, at the those December meetings?
Barb, do you want to speak right to that, or should I?
Yes, yeah, I can speak to that. So currently there are questions and answers posted for, I believe we're up to about 184 questions and answers posted, and there's another 10 or so that are in progress. And it's clear that there are several themes of misconceptions and misperceptions about the zoning law. And it's hard, admittedly, for anyone to go through the 184 questions and answers that are posted and tease out those themes. However, those of us who have been preparing answers to the questions, I think could do that with a little bit more streamlining, could pull out the themes of some of the misperceptions. Some of those were listed in the mailing that was sent out to all town residents last week in the quarterly town newsletter. But I think it would be possible to touch on additional themes. So for example, we've had two privilege of the floor sessions now where erroneously a claim has been made that trails are going to be required across private property across the town for single family residences, which is utterly untrue, and that's not stated within the draft zoning law at all. There are numerous examples of that could be summarized probably in a couple pages and point out where the fallacies are, where the misperceptions are, and try to put some true facts on the table for the residents of Caroline to understand.
And I will just add to that, Michelle, compared to the FAQ sheet, which is there, which was very general, that was like sort of frequently asked questions as we understood them to be about zoning in general. Things like, what is the zoning commission? That sort of stuff. This would be more focused on, which at the time we did not have any specifics for our possible zoning proposals. So this would be focused on what has been a recurrent misperceptions. So that would be the idea. We would differ in that way. And as Barb said, right now, I mean, a lot of people are not going to wade through 180 plus questions on the website. So it'd be a way of getting a more compact, right to the point sample of some things that would probably be important to know. Anybody else want to speak to this? Ernie.
I guess my sense is that, it's starting to get a pretty big population of documents out there. And could we not just take our frequently asked questions and kind of resubmit it with more emphasis on these more specific questions, as well as the ones that we already have, because I think that's a pretty useful document. And if I had to direct anyone to one place, that would probably be the place. Just a thought.
Sure. Any
I'm not
comments,
sure how
Brenda?
that I'm not sure how that differs from what's being proposed, in the sense that you'd have to prepare a new document anyway.
Yeah, maybe it isn't, but I just, I guess I just, if it's going to reiterate stuff that's already in the frequently asked questions, then,
Oh, yeah. So I guess my conception of it, Ernie, is it does not reiterate at all what's in the frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
What it does is summarize and tease out some of the themes that seem to be sort of common misconceptions, hangups, whatever, about zoning that we're seeing in the questions being asked of us. It would actually have nothing probably in common with the frequently asked questions sheet. It would be, is or is not there a minimum lot size of 3 acres in the agricultural district? Do I or do I not have to cut my lawn at a certain height? Things like that, you know, will there not be mandated to have a trail across my property? Stuff that, you know, is coming up frequently, but, you know, is not what was in the frequently asked questions sheet at all.
I don't have any objections to it. I just, you know, would like.
But agree,
to-
I think there's a deluge of material. That's
Create
one
more
of the
work
issues.
than we have already on our plates, please.
Well, if this were to occur, and I think we're probably about our 5-minute mark now, my suggestion would be that those looking at the questions most often sort of draft something and it then be, you know, go over by email to the committee to comment on, and then we have a vote, say at our next meeting that, yes, we like this, no, we don't.
I second that motion.
All right, so that's my proposal. All in favor of doing that, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, so we will endeavor to create such a sheet. Okay. And then we're moving on to what Jean had listed as questions that require discussion. And I don't think Jean's with us yet. I'm not seeing a phone here. So, okay, so the first item down there is.
Bill Jean's still on the plane.
Okay, all right, you got a text or something. Okay, great.
Yeah,
All
she
right.
hasn't been let off.
All right, all right. Well, it's a good thing she had a backup plan for running this meeting. That's all I can say. Okay, so the first question involves cluster development / conservation subdivision. So these are a few items that we put in the parking lot, as Jean called it last meeting. She specifically wrote in these questions on the agenda. What do we understand sort of these to be? Should they be included in our zoning proposal? And what kind of guidance do we find in the comprehensive plan? So I think we discussed at the last meeting what a cluster subdevelopment was and what a conservation subdivision was. Does anyone want to go over that again, or just a brief reminder?
Yep.
Okay, Nam, why don't you give us the thumbnail?
Sure. So a conservation subdivision is a layout technique that is applied just to major subdivisions, which would be 5 or more, like a parcel that is split 5 or more times. And it's a technique that allows for the development to occur at the same time as the important open spaces on the parcel are preserved. And so the conservation subdivision, so you should think about it as a design kind of layout. It doesn't have anything to do with the density, but it allows a high degree of flexibility in terms of where the lots are, how big the lots are, what the road frontages would be. Those are all determined based on the characteristics of the parcel. And so the conservation subdivision should be thought of as a way to allow for whatever density of development the zoning calls for, and do it in a way that so the house sites are could be laid out across the landscape. So they're strategically located to have physical or visual access to the preserved open space, or if it's more beneficial to that parcel or that development, they could be clustered all together in one small area. So it's a extremely flexible design tool to allow residential development to occur in a way that also protects the sensitive environmental features on the site. So it's a process and it's a layout method.
And in contrast, the cluster development.
So the cluster development, they're really one and the same. The process is a conservation subdivision. The object is to kind of have your cake and eat it too. You get to develop however many lots you're eligible to develop. they could either be spread out across the landscape strategically, or they could be clustered in one area that's the most beneficial location for development. So it's really, you know, I think cluster subdivision kind of came about maybe in the 1970s, and it's really been kind of supplanted, or the conservation subdivision is the method that we get at that. So a cluster may be appropriate in some locations and may not be appropriate in some locations. So the conservation subdivision technique gives you flexibility to design with the land.
Okay, Barb, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, and let me just preface the motion by saying this isn't meant to stop conversation in the future about conservation subdivisions. But my motion would be to remove or disregard the language of clustered development in the December 28th draft, and focus only on the language of conservation subdivision as we move forward. But in fact, have a robust discussion in the zoning commission about whether we want to include the notion of conservation subdivisions in the law, in the draft going forward. But I just think it's been confusing, and I think it also is a dated term to leave the term cluster development in there. So my motion is to ignore and remove the cluster development wording and focus future discussions on conservation subdivisions.
Second.
Okay. I'm going to just make it simple. Are there any objections to making the change that Barb just suggested? All right, hearing none, we will adopt the conservation subdivision language. Now, Barb, would you suggest we have that robust discussion now?
No. I think we all need to read those sections carefully and be able to refer to them. You know, it's shared screens and all of that. So no, I would suggest that as a future meeting agenda item.
Okay. Are other folks in agreement with that, or anyone want to try to say we should take it on? Because last meeting we also kicked it off to another meeting, and so I wasn't sure if Jean's intent was that we try to grapple with it this meeting or not. Michelle.
I guess I agree with Barb that we should hold off on this, because I thought one of the intentions of this meeting was to go through the use tables and get that taken care of. So that would be, then we would have sections, Articles 2 and 3 taken care of, and then we could prepare for the next public information meeting more easily, I think.
Okay, and I think that's fine, though tentatively, I think the conservation subdivision is referred to in the use table, I believe. Am I right, Nan?
Yes, it is, but that doesn't mean we can't go ahead without addressing it right.
So we're going to go ahead and leave that language in. We will have a big robust discussion sometime in the future on that. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Is there any objection to leaving the cluster development, the conservation subdivision discussion for later, and moving on to, I think we do have some motions on minor and major occupations to deal with, and then move on to the use table. That is sort of the use table, I know, but. All right, so we're okay with moving on? All right. Okay, so yeah, so the next item Jean had here was the major and minor home occupations. We have had some, discussion of this both in committee and by email. And Michelle, you actually had some motions on that. And I'm thinking that we could probably deal with those fairly expeditiously. And if we get bogged down, then we can make a motion to leave that part behind also. For my set of motions, but you must have it there as well.
Okay, so I think the first motion would be I move to accept the division between home occupation majors and home occupations minor as shown on the use table. We had discussed not making that distinction, but I move that we keep that distinction in there.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll
Ernie
second.
seconds. Okay, again, my understanding of our discussion is this is not going to be controversial, so I'm simply going to ask, does anybody object to keeping the just as minor and major home occupations as the two categories of home occupations? Okay, so that's been approved. I think the next motion was about the permissions, right?
Right, so I move that all minor home occupations be permitted in all districts.
Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, not seeing any move for discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. This means it'll be a simple P for minor occupations, home occupations in all districts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, any objections? Okay, that is also approved. Okay, the next motion had to do with the major ones, right?
Right, I move that all home occupations major be permitted with an ASPR, which is an abbreviated site plan review in all districts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Barb. Again, any discussion on that? And again, for the benefit of those maybe listening in for the first time, things in this town already, there is a process called site plan review. There's a site plan review law. The zoning introduces a short form of a site plan review called abbreviated site plan review, which is anticipated to be a one meeting. Come in on a fairly simple question, get your answer right that day from the review board. All right, all those in favor of using the abbreviated site plan review for major home occupations in all districts, say aye or raise your hand, say yes, whatever, indicate you're in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I don't see any. Okay. All right, there's the fourth motion had to do with clarification of the number of employees. Michelle, do you want to move that, or Barb, I think it was your language? Which one of you wants to do that?
Either one. I copied Barb's language, so I could move it.
Okay, go ahead.
Please go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, I move that home occupation definitions in the terminology section be amended so that home occupation minor refers to an enterprise employing up to 3 persons, and home occupation major refers to an enterprise employing more than 3 persons. The rest of the language in these definitions in the terminology sections would remain as is.
Okay, I'm certainly happy to second that motion. Any discussion?
Yeah, have we discussed anything about like what a part-time employee would be? Would that be counted as an employee? Like say I had 2 full-time, if they're not full-time employees.
Right.
I'm just wondering.
The full-time equivalent, 3 full-time equivalent employees would be the proper phrasing or definition. I don't know where that would happen.
Right.
Well, that was a question I had as well. Were we talking about full-time employees? And I think it's just something we have to iron out in the terminology section. I also want to say I just admitted Jean to the from the waiting room. So
oh, great. Thank you. She must be off the plane. So I think that would be the question, is whether we want to use the language right here of employing up to 3 full-time equivalent employees or something. And I think that's, if we get bogged down, but I think that's the key question. I think that there was some discussion of this before, and I think it was felt that it would be too complicated to have some involved description of how many part-times and full-times and whatever. So I think that the full-time equivalent might be a simple way to get at that question, but what do other folks think?
I'm fine with that, but I think other people might have had objections, so.
I'm fine with that.
No objections here.
Yeah, no. If we had,
okay,
sounds good to me.
All right, so just change that language to up to 3 full-time equivalent people, employees, whatever. And the same language copied to the major. All right, with that, all those in favor of that, making that change, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay. I have now a fifth one about home occupations, because this came up a few times in email and in the most recent discussion we were having about sizes of businesses, where the business owner lives. And so there was one comment, I think, Bernie, you proposed that the business owner must reside at the business address. I now know and realize there are several places where the business owner doesn't reside exactly at the business address. They happen to own the parcel next door. Notice they may, for whatever reason, that was better. And so Nan, that you suggested that we can certainly say adjacent parcel too. So this is a question for discussion, but I would tend to move, and I don't know where this goes in the document, that for a home occupation, the business owner, either resides at the address or on an adjacent parcel. Does that seem like a good or bad idea?
I'd support that, and I'd suggest that that language be included in the definitions in the terminology section of the draft law for both home occupation major and home occupation minor.
I agree with Barb.
I agree.
Any other discussion?
too.
All right. Okay, so we will, let's just now vote on that and then see if Jean has anything she wants to update us about her flight or anything. So all those in favor of making this change, that it will be the business owner residing at the address or the adjacent parcel, please say aye.
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 Any objections? Okay, that has been approved. Okay, so Jean, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to tell people one thing, which is that I had, as you know, written to NYSEG about the electric substation on Middle Road, and they've gotten back to me and said that their engineer will be in touch with me to answer my questions. That hasn't happened yet. And I think you all saw what I sent that I've gotten from the about the gravel mine. So
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Okay. Do you want me to continue chairing the meeting? Looks like you are the way that you can see things. It's up to you.
No, because I'm going to be moving yet again soon.
Okay, all right. Okay, then the next item on the agenda has to do with multifamily dwellings, and this is the townhouse thing. And I believe the current motion is to add a line for townhouses to the use table. So I will read that as a motion. Does someone want to second that?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Anybody want to say something about this?
Do we need another line?
Good question. So the question would be, and we'll get some advice from Nan. I think that was discussed in email a little bit. I mean, it could be added. I erroneously suggested adding it to the multi-dwelling family, which is actually, I think, what I shouldn't have said. There's a line saying 2-family homes. And I think what we discussed last meeting was maybe saying 2-family homes or townhouses. And so I'm throwing that out to everybody now. Would that be better, or would its own line be better? And
Yeah, I recommend its own line, because a townhouse is technically a thing, according to, how the state interprets this. And you could have a row of townhouses, you could have 5 townhouse units, that are 5 single families in a townhouse complex, if you will. So no, I suggest that we leave the townhouse as its own, or insert townhouse as its own line. So that there could be a variable size of townhouse.
But all townhouses by definition are 3 unit.
Okay.
Period.
Thank you.
So, I mean, there are no differences between, we don't zone for single family here and not there. We don't zone for 2-family here and not there. We don't zone for townhouses here and not there. So they could all be on the same line. be, or on 3 separate lines. I don't care. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Let's have them with the 2 families then. I think that makes sense.
And Nan, is there any problem with doing it that way?
Well, I mean, technically a townhouse is not a 2-family house.
That's why the word "or" has to be in there. I mean, we understand these are 2 different
Yeah,
critters.
I mean, I
and
guess-
since we're going to treat them the same, we'll put them on the same line. Is that
Right, if they're, I think that's the bottom line. If you're gonna treat them the same way, then, you know, a lot of communities put them on as one line that says single family detached or single family attached, which is what a townhouse is. So if you're gonna treat them the same exact way, certainly you can put them all on one line, but I would make sure the definitions define those words so people know.
Yeah. Okay, duly noted, makes sense. And I think, you know, Ernie, as Ernie pointed out, theoretically, we could have a line that said single family, 2-family, and townhouses. And that's the whole line, because we aren't saying anything different in one zone versus another for those. Anybody want to entertain that as an idea? I see a thumbs up from Jean. Any objections, I guess, to that? Okay, so that will be the new motion, that there'll be a line that says single family, 2-family, and townhouses as one line in the use table. And that's the motion. And anybody opposed to that motion? All right, I'm gonna assume that I'm not hearing anything because there are no objections. So that's what we'll do. Okie dokie. And then the other thing left over from the last meeting is personal wind towers. I think my sense of where we're at right now is the motion would be that personal wind towers, and we'll talk about that in a minute, what that means, would be allowed in all districts with site plan review. That's my sense of the discussion so far. Am I accurate in that motion?
I believe so. I think that makes sense.
Okay. And so that is the motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Could it be the quickie site plan review?
Well, that's one of the questions. So let's have a little discussion about that and a couple other things. So I am slow on the ball on this one, but I did try to make a foray into what would be a personal wind tower. You know, the question is not whether wind power is economical in Caroline, because certainly large wind power, there's several studies out saying it isn't. Intermediate is a different matter. A study that the county did said that intermediate might well be, but our problem is we don't have enough high voltage, 3-phase power lines, and that was the prohibiting factor. But personal wind towers is a different matter. But no one in any of those studies I saw, nor on the NYSERDA website, nor anywhere else, said what is the size of a personal wind tower, either in size or kilowatts. So I'm wondering if anybody else has come across this. The county study went down to about 10 kilowatts, but they called that appropriate for like agricultural. And I just don't know what the right size, I don't know if there's a specified power or size. So there's that question. And then what's the level of review? What are the concerns? Are there enough concerns that ought to be SPR, or is it more straightforward? And so for a personal one, it's ASPR. Those are key questions for me, and I don't have any answers.
Have we decided height and all that?
Well, I think that is, the question is a personal wind tower defined as a maximum size or a maximum power or a combination of the two? I did put a call into Renovis today, who I don't know if they know anything about wind towers. I was going to try to get their opinion on the matter because I don't know.
I think we need to kick this one down the road. And this is a new law. This is like batteries and solar farms and everything else. It's just, there's too many technical aspects, and I think that all we can do is just kind of put an asterisk there.
Well, oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle. Sorry, yeah.
I mean,
most of the, go ahead.
If you allow them with an SPR, then whenever you have the law in place, then it could take effect, right? I mean, rather than just an asterisk, you would have something, they have to be reviewed and they have to be, their height has to be checked. They have to be far enough away from the property line, whatever. All that stuff would kick in when you had the law on the books.
Yeah, I guess I'm seeing it a little bit differently, because I mean, I think the way I see the law kicking in is in terms of larger, what we have in our other systems, like our solar law, our battery law, is that small enough things which are deemed to be relatively safe, innocuous, inoffensive are allowed everywhere with a very simple permit review. And there could well be one for a personal wind tower, and someone to check to make sure that it's strong enough, safe enough, or definitely good enough. Anything larger that starts to have land use impacts, that's where the law really kicks in. And so what we could do in the zoning law is say anything not small wind tower, not allowed. And then when the town finally creates a wind law, then that could be changed. But the question is what to do about personal wind towers in the meantime. Do we know enough about them? Are they safe enough that we can just go ahead and allow them? Or do they also have to be X'd out across the board, which is what I think Ernie was starting to say, unless and until the planning board or someone looks at the question. I'm ambivalent on the personal wind tower question. I'd like to allow them if possible. Looks like Nan has some stuff to add.
Yeah, two things. One is that the personal wind tower kind of arena has been highly influenced over the last few years by what NYSERDA has offered for incentives. And that is driven a lot of it. And those personal, and so NYSERDA has kind of set the bar and kind of set the stage for that. But they, depending on the wind conditions, they can be anywhere from 70 to 120 feet. On the other hand, as technology changes and we get, they get more efficient, there certainly are people that are experimenting with ones that are lower and they spin sideways and do all sorts of things. So we don't know what the technology in terms of height is going to be in the future. And we don't know what NYSERDA is going to do in terms of their incentives either. So, up till now, they have been pretty high. They're not 40 feet tall. Most of them aren't. I think the height of them is very variable depending on the conditions of the site. The other thing I wanted to mention that you should be aware of in this discussion about personal wind towers is that Ag and Markets has determined that wind towers that are on farms, on a farm operation that meets the definition of a farm operation in New York State agricultural district are considered a farm structure, no different than a barn or a silo or something else that they would use. So wind power on farms is a farm, no different. You can't really treat it any different than any other farm building, provided it does not produce more than 110% of the needs of the electrical needs of the farm. So, they're not able to put them up to, sell power to the grid. They're able to put them up to power their farm. So just be aware that they are considered and protected as a farm structure on a farm operation. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Okay, and just to emphasize, when they are treated as a farm structure, that means basically, Ag and Markets stuff governs, and then the zoning law would not be able to say much about the wind tower.
Yes, they probably wouldn't. Yeah, an abbreviated site plan review, the department would accept. They would look at setbacks. They would look at, to make sure the location was in a safe location and not infringing on, other regulated features. But a full-blown site plan review for a farm wind tower, they would not look highly upon. But an abbreviated site plan, that happens frequently. So that's okay, because that's really limited to some very specific things that you're looking for. You're not asking them to, come in with the whole site plan review engineered plan. So I think an abbreviated site plan for a farm wind tower would be fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do from the state's perspective, that would be okay.
Okay, so I am sensitive to the point that, we are spending a fair amount of time on something of which there's maybe one and might be a few others in the town, and maybe is a lot of attention on something, a lot of time being spent on something that we really, maybe doesn't need this kind of time right now. And so I'm wondering if the motion is either going to be that they're allowed in all districts with perhaps ASPR, or the motion should be, we're going to not allow it until sometime, either we have time to deal with it in the future, or the planning board creates a law. And I'll recognize Jean, and then we'll decide which of those we're going to do.
My suggestion is that I move that we put a line in the thing that says personal wind towers, and we have an asterisk, and we recommend to the board that there should be some research done in this. If we get it done by the time we finish this, we can put it in. And that at this point we would say ASPR, but we are not really ready to say that. That we're just it's a placeholder, I would say, until we finish our research. That's my motion.
Okay. I'm happy to second that motion. And does anybody want to talk about that motion?
Yeah, so you're gonna put it in there, and then we're gonna discuss it later and decide why put it in there. Why don't we just kick it down the road?
Just as a placeholder for the future.
I think we are kicking it down the road.
Yeah. I mean, I will emphasize, again, the audience here as well as to all of us, this is early in a draft. We can put this line in now and propose ASPR. And I hope that we'll get some comment at the public information session about saying, hey, I've got one of those. It's a pain in the butt, or I've got one of those. There are no problems. I think that's fine. That we can get some of our information from the community as well, because there's probably a lot of experience out there. So I just want to hesitate against thinking, oh God, anything we have to have this just right, because we can't go back on this decision. We can change. Any other discussion on Jean's motion?
Do we want to, spend some more time on researching what we would call what are we calling it now? A minor wind facility or whatever? Personal, yeah. Just establish a kilowatt max, establish a maximum height, and then just, that'll be what we present. And then.
I think that would be great. And is there someone who wants to take that on? Again, I do have a call into Renovus. I have no idea if they're going to return the call. But if someone else would like to look into the question of what is a personal wind tower, what's an appropriate height and or power, is there someone in the zoning commission who would like to take that on? Or if there's someone in the listening audience who'd like to take that on and provide us information, that would be great too.
Sure.
I'll just comment that the U.S. Department of Energy categorizes residential applications of wind turbines as ranging in size up to 20 kilowatts.
Ouch.
Okay, so that's power, which is not the same, because that's affected by height as well as blade length and everything. So I don't know what, to me, it seems to me in our community, we might want to think of size more than power, because visual impact, but maybe there are reasons why power is important because of noise. Again, I'm too uninformed.
And my concern about relying on height and blade size is that technology is going to change, and technology is changing rapidly.
Fair enough. So I'd argue, so what? If it's 40 feet, it's 40 feet. I don't care if they get better at 30 feet, but anyway, yes, I hear you. Michelle.
Well, this may not mean anything, but I noticed in some of the information Barb sent that the town of Ithaca, or the city of Ithaca, I think said that they consider it a right for anybody to have a personal wind tower as long as they had enough space.
But as I will say, every community is different, and we do not need to be governed by anybody else's zoning.
No, that's true. But I mean, it made me think that, yeah, maybe it is a right that you can have a wind tower. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
All right, what I'm hearing though is deafening silence on someone saying, yeah, I'd be happy to look into what
I
might.
will. I thought Barb beat me to the punch. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, awesome. Ernie, I really
I'm
appreciate
gonna come up with a motion next week.
I was gonna say, Novus would be where I would start.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they call me Ernie, I'll tell them to call you.
Please.
All right, that sounds great. So that's what we've decided on that one, which is pending an understanding of size and potential issues. We will either put in or put out that row. Okay, well, I think that actually gets us to starting. Oh, CAFOs, crap. All right, sorry about that. And apologies for the almost French. So the thing about CAFOs here is need to put in a footnote about CAFOs and ag. What would be a regional setbacks? The note was essentially that, ag and markets law in general is governing CAFOs. The town can have a small amount of input and typically a setback. We have no idea of a regional setback as we were last time. I think we're still there. Does anybody have anything they know or want to add about CAFO setbacks? Nan.
Yeah, other than CAFOs are regulated by New York State DEC, and Ag and Markets has made it clear that they accept local regulations that are consistent with the state regulations, which in general are 100 feet. So I'm not sure, I don't know what the rationale would be for exceeding or superseding the state rules on that.
All right. So one possibility is to say that we would say 100 feet, which would be consistent with what the DEC is requiring. And then the question would be, is it even worth saying that? Or if someone wants to move to make it some other larger distance.
Should consider wind direction.
You have to move it depending on the wind. All right. So yeah, any discussion at this point, whether we're going to put a line in about setbacks for CAFOs?
If the setback's just going to be what the state would require anyway, I don't think there's any point, because then we have to change our law when the state changes theirs. So that's it.
Anybody else? Okay. So am I right in, again, unless we want to look into the question of seriously setting something larger than what the state is typically requiring, that we would then go back to being silent on the question of setback. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Well, would you rather, you could just say that, you could make reference to the DEC regulations about CAFOs and say that, those are the expectations for the town as well. It doesn't really mean much because it would happen anyway, but you could say that if you wanted
Right.
to.
I always laugh at laws that say you must obey all laws, because I sort of thought that was understood, but all right, I think for now, I don't want to just kick everything on there, but I think we don't know enough to say anything different. So I think my vote would be that we stay silent unless and until someone on this committee wants to look into it and say, hey, here's what this other maybe environmental organization or something is saying would be a good number. And I'd be happy to have us propose that. And then eventually down the line, it becomes a question of whether it sticks or not, and whether the town decides to defend it or not. But I have no way to set a number that I'm comfortable with. Anybody else want to say something? I got Jean up for sure. Go ahead, Jean.
I will do that research about CAFOs.
Awesome.
And meanwhile, we can just be silent and then I'll come back.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I think, am I right that we're ready to actually go back to looking at the use table?
You're right.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to share my screen. I think I have the use table up, so let me just take a look. Yes. All right, so, and I don't know how this looks to you folks who are at the town hall. Yeah. I will say one thing, and I think we may want to push this off. So there had been some discussion this week about regarding the maps in terms of some names and maybe or maybe not sort of like combining the Brookendale commercial, way to rename it or simply just subsume it into the greater Brookendale thing. Is that a question people want to take up now, the maps again, or should we continue working on the use table and maybe come back to the maps in a later meeting? And I can't see anybody, so just talk because I got my screen share.
I think, as long as we're kind of pushing our way through this table, let's do that and worry about the names later.
I'm comfortable with any objection to doing it that way. All right, hearing none. We had looked at residential uses and customary residential uses, and we've talked about now some of these things about home occupations. And we've talked about the single family, 2-family dwellings and the wind towers for personal use. We had gotten through, and the CAFOs here, we'd gotten through a number of these agricultural uses and had just started the commercial uses and got done with auction house is where I recall us being at the end of the last meeting. And so I'm going to move us on to here. Auto body repair shop. Yes.
I just have one thing I want to go back to about the sawmills on the farm.
Sure.
Can you scroll back up?
I'm trying to. Let's see.
Okay. Okay.
There we
I
go.
think-
Yep.
Yeah, I think where we left that, I think Nan sort of clarified what that means. And so really, we had thought maybe it was a typo or something like that, but there is a case where, we just have farm sawmills. So that should be like P for the ag district, right? And then it would be
so it is.
not allowed anywhere else. So all these other things, is that right?
So Nan, do you have anything to? I mean, is it?
So
It would if it's a farm operation that has a sawmill as part of their timber operation as part of their farm, and the New York State Ag District is in a they happen to be in a hamlet or a commercial zone or wherever, that you wouldn't be able to prohibit that if it's part of a farm operation that's in a New York State Ag District, which I think overlaps the hamlet areas. So I think that's why the ASPR was in there, to recognize that there might be some farms that are in other zoning districts that have rights to stay as a farm and do farm operation type things.
Okay, so I guess to cut to the chase, then is that line correct, the way it's written with, if you say that the things in red are, proposed? Is that how you would do it? Or is the last one in commercial, would that have to be prohibited there? Like it would not be an ASPR?
No, again, if you have a New York State Ag District that overlaps the commercial zoning district and a farm wants to have an on-farm sawmill as part of their farm operation, then you should keep it as ASPR and not prohibit it.
Okay, all right.
So that's why it says sawmill on farm. We probably should, a better way of saying that would be sawmill part of a farm operation, which is a specific definition recognized by the state ag and markets law.
Okay, and I have another question for you, Nan. As we're having these discussions, are you making notes and you will change this in another version, or should one of us be doing that?
Well, I think both. I'm taking notes, but I think you make notes as you go along as well, just so we make sure we capture everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm trying to in general as we do this, but I'm glad you're taking notes, Nan, because I, wouldn't want to have that weighty responsibility on my shoulders alone. So, but I'll do my best. So for example, I did fill in this line that had been inadvertently left off garbled last time. So the accessory structures are to be reviewed, et cetera. That was what we discussed last meeting.
Okay, great.
The sawmill.
And yeah, I will go through. Pardon, Bruce?
Sawmill on the farm. So in commercial, we have an ASPR. You
Yes.
wouldn't be allowed there. Just
Well,
be
okay,
permitted.
so first off, it would be allowed there, right? ASPR
Yeah.
doesn't mean something is not allowed, right? It means it's an
Right.
allowed activity, but it has to go through a quick one meeting review. I think the rationale potentially for having any kind of review is, well, exactly, what if someone's gonna locate it next to celebrations, right? Or something else in our commercial area where the noise or something of that operation might merit a little bit of a review just to nudge it over this way or whatever, or the site plan might discuss. So
Well,
it can either be a
the thing I was
P or an
thinking of
ASPR.
There's one thing you're gonna have to think about is just like tree farms. They're close to a lot of different things, so possibly it would be, you know, ASPR, I'm not sure. Say I have a tree farm in the, you know, like in the hamlet, so it's gonna be permitted? Or it's gonna be ASPR? Okay, I got it, ISPR, I got it. No problem.
ASPR.
Sounds good, thank you.
But we have it crossed out in the Brookendale commercial.
Right.
You know,
And, you
is
know,
that legal? I mean, we can't prohibit it if there's an agricultural use there. Or if it's in an agricultural zone,
Right.
excuse me.
so, I mean, I think the reason it's an X there, and Nat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, you know, the Brookendale commercial, which is, again, not the only place in the town the commercial is allowed, but it's such a confined, small area, and we know there's no ag district there.
There's no
And
ag
that's why-
district. Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
We might get rid of that anyway.
But it may, you know, therefore it probably makes, there's never going to be a farm in between the Brookendale Post Office and Brookton's Market. There will not be a farm created anytime in the near future, I don't think.
I just don't know what the bounds of the district are.
Yeah, well, I probably got them wrong anyway, but.
Okay.
All right. So that seems legit. And I think it could be an ASPR here on Brookendale, and it may be, again, pending discussion we're going to have next meeting or some other time about, is there a difference between the center of Brookendale and the outer part of Brookendale or not? So a discussion to be had, and maybe that will disappear at that time. Okay. So anything else on the old stuff? Are we? All right, let's move on to the new stuff. And so are we going until 9:30 tonight?
It's okay with me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I just can't remember what the proposal was originally, but I
don't
guess we'll go to 9:30. I think I can make it that long. I just want to check the agenda, also make sure I'm not. Okay, I need to leave some time to talk about next meetings in the public meeting. I need to leave. Okay.
Yeah, I've got something to bring up at the end of the meeting too. I didn't do it on privilege of the floor, but I figured.
Okay, let me give you a few minutes to the end of the meeting too then, Bruce. Okay. So we'll work on this table till about 9:15-ish or a little after, and then we'll deal a little bit with scheduling our next meetings for this group, the public meeting, anything we can think about for that, and Bruce. Okey doke. So in terms of getting through this, and I guess probably just want to ask, is there any line, is there any line that is visible right now, which starts at auto body repair and goes down to the cannabis stuff that someone wants to talk to about? And so we'll start up here at auto body repair, and I'll give like a minute to hear if someone wants to talk about it, or a few seconds. And if not, I'm going to move on to the next line. So is there any discussion over auto body repair? And just chime in if you do, because again, I can't see everybody.
Well, I'll just say that, again, where I put things in red, these were as a result of people's suggestions. So I think it's, kind of a question of, do you agree with these suggestions, or do you have a problem with them?
Okay.
I guess I have a question, where you say like under auto body repair, you have as part of a home occupation only, and then you say site plan review. So I guess I don't know what that means.
It's in red. So this proposal is the red SPR would replace the black as part of home. So it'd be a replacement.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't go through the effort of crossing everything out, but where you see it in red, that's replacing. Yeah.
Okay.
Bill,
with that- Yes.
can you either make it a touch smaller or scroll
Yeah.
down a little? Thank you, so that we can
Yeah,
see. the
I
text.
had
Yeah,
it,
thank
I
you.
was about to do that anyway. Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
Edited just to take comments from the general and put them in red, so that it was kind of an amended.
All right. So Ernie, I think you had you at least mentioned auto body repair, et cetera, in one of your emails. And that doesn't mean you had a lot of thoughts on it, but.
I did.
I think you said, oh, I see no problem with it. And I don't know, maybe maybe I'm misremembering. But at any rate, let's go through this then, since there are a couple of things in red. The change to SPR from home occupation in Real Springs. Are we accepting that change or not? And the same one in. Okay, any objections to accepting the stuff in red on the auto body repair line?
No.
All right, hearing none, then that's what's going to happen. Okay. So then moving on to automobile service station and repair. So I take it the difference between a service station versus a repair shop is, someone help educate me.
I added that, I added that line because auto body service station and repair, first of all, can include a gas station. And there's a difference between, servicing your car and having the body worked on, right? So but the auto body service station and repair, I think it's also in our terminology. Anyway, I saw that someplace. It's basically that it has a lot more fluids that might be hazardous and may not be appropriate for places like the ag rural or in a residential hamlet.
So Nan, maybe you can help me. Like, for example, the Dandy Mini Mart is a convenience store and it's a gas station. And I'm assuming that both parts of that have to comply with the zoning is how things work. So if we have a line saying gas station, is this distinction between a repair shop and a service station, if that's because you have a gas station, is that important to make, or does the gas station part get covered by the gas station line?
I think most of the time that automobile repair is separated out from a gas station, and the gas station is almost always coupled with some sort of small convenience or retail store, because that's how they're built. So an automobile service station, again, this goes back to the definitions. I would, you could consider a service station the same thing as a repair. If you want to include a gas station in this one, then that needs to be made clear. But I would say that a gas station in a convenience store is very different than someone who has just a repair station where, you like a New York State inspection station, you get your motor fixed or whatever. That's very different than a gas station.
So I guess my
Bill,
question.
just to point out, later on, there is a line for fuel gasoline station and then fuel electric vehicle charging station. So my impression was that this automobile service and repair is not a gasoline station.
Okay.
Okay, but I understood Michelle to say that one of the differences between the service station and the repair shop was that the service station typically had gasoline and other fluids at it. And that's where I was confused.
Yeah, and I think part of the confusion is that it's an auto body repair. So auto body repair is the external body. But if you need, like your spark plugs changed, you're going to go to an auto repair shop.
Right.
Okay, I did not notice careful enough body versus repair. I take it all back. Thank you.
That was my point. And also in our terminology section, there is no auto body repair shop in the terminology, but there is service station and repair.
Okay, so we should define auto body repair. Okay, I was only trying to ask whether, given that we had fuel station and this auto body repair, which I mistook as service, did we actually need a separate line? I guess the answer is we do, because auto body service actually is different than repair, and I'm fully on board now.
Well, it's different from repairing the body. right?
If we
Yeah,
have,
yeah,
I've seen body shops. It's different from a body shop.
absolutely.
That's what I would call an auto body repair shop.
Okay, Bruce, you had something you want to say?
yeah, if we have fuel down below, then
Yes.
I'm wondering, since it's like Hamlet, Brookendale, it's SUP, why isn't it okay in Hamlet, Sladeville and Hamlet, Beesmer?
Because
Are you
those
talking
are-
about,
they're residential.
Hamlet, Brookendale's not residential?
Not like Beesimer and Sladeville Spring, not like Beesimer and West Sladeville.
How do you figure that?
so to clarify the air, this comes down to philosophy and what was laid out in Article 1, I think, or 2, about the intent of the different zones. So all of the zones allow some amount of commercial activity. All of the zones could certainly have housing in them, though, most folks might not want to be in the commercial zone, but there certainly are houses there now, okay? So all of them have residential, all of them are commercial. The question is the relative emphasis and sizes of those things. So in general, the Beesimer Hamlet and to some extent the West Sladeville Hamlet have been set up as more residentially oriented. Doesn't mean there aren't going to be businesses there. And the Brookendale Hamlet, the Sladeville Springs Hamlet are sort of more commercially oriented. They allow larger commercial businesses and more types. Doesn't mean there aren't going to be houses there. So does that help, Bruce? Maybe you'll think that Beesimer is more residential.
As long as it doesn't have gas, I don't see why it's not allowed in there. Everybody can use that type of service. And it just, I just not real comfortable with not being able to, I don't see where there's a big difference. You say between Hamlet, Brookendale and Hamlet, Beesimer and it's, to me, Hamlet, Beesimer would be an ideal place for something like that.
Well, I have to disagree. I drove down Beesimer Road yesterday, and that is a lovely residential area. And as Nan pointed out, I don't think there's anything wrong with having one or two hamlets that are primarily residential. I mean, you only have to go, what, a mile to get to.
Well, Hamlet, Beesimer takes in quite a section of Route 79 also.
Yeah, but that's all residential. It's what we've
It's not residential. The livery, the coffee shops there, there's.
The livery is the only building that's not
There's apartment
residential.
houses, there's.
An apartment house is residential.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is
there's storage.
This is okay. So this is a recurring and understandable. We all are different people. We have different visions of maybe how this should go. What I'm going to suggest here, therefore, is this is a time for a vote. And I think that Bruce is saying maybe this X should be something different. And would you go for this X under Beesimer Hamlet to be an SUP for automobile service station? Is that your suggestion, Bruce?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to take that's on the table now. And I suggest, does anyone else want to speak to that question? I guess I should ask. All right, having done that, all those in favor of changing this X to an SUP, say aye, because I can't actually, again, see everybody.
Aye.
Okay, and all those opposed to changing that to an SUP say nay.
Nay.
That's nay.
Nay.
Okay, so it's going to stay an X. Any
Bill,
other comments?
Bill, while we're on that line though,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a proposal for the automobile service repair in the ag rural district to be listed as part of home occupation.
That's a good idea.
Allowed as part of home occupation.
Yes, allowed as part of home occupation.
So this would be the proposal to make that right as part of home occupation.
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting someone's got noise in there. I don't know where that.
Gene.
I will mute.
Thank you. Hello.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Everyone can unmute themselves again. Everyone got muted there by probably Mark or something. So if, so, all right, so what the proposal on the table is to change the service station under ag rural to as part of home occupation. Discussion to the motion. Anyone want to, obviously, Barb, you're in favor. Do you want to say anything? Okay.
I just think it would, I propose that because I think it would be a useful service to have available in the ag rural district.
All right. Does anyone want to speak against making that change? That's gonna, I'm trying to save ourselves some time from all saying, yes, Barb, we think it's a great idea. So does anybody want to speak against that motion? Anyone opposed to making that change? Okay, so that change has been made. Anything else on this line? All right, moving on to bakery, there were some suggested changes that indeed in Slaterville Springs, I wish they had this Excel, I could like keep freeze the top row, but I can't quite do that. Anyway, so making instead of part of a home occupation, that in Slaterville Springs, you could have a bakery that was not part of home occupation, change it to SPR, and similarly in Caroline Center, Speedsville, and similarly in Brooktondale. So those are proposed changes. Anybody objecting to those proposed changes? Okay, hearing no objection, I'm going to assume those are approved. And then we are looking at the bank line. Same question, there's some proposed changes. Any discussion of the proposed changes in the bank line? All right, any objection to changing to site plan review in these 3 additional districts? All right, hearing no objection. All right, small battery and storage facilities. Okay, next proposed change. So, all right, so large battery energy storage systems are going to be bigger. You know, they're going to be bigger than what you have in your house. They would potentially be used by you know, a commercial entity to help do grid stabilization. They also, if it's a farm, might happen to go above the 600 kilowatt hours. That is the small one. I don't know. So it could be, it'd be sort of be a large commercial, like a large business system that this might apply to, or again, something actually used as part of the power grid system. So they're going to be relatively large. They'll be relatively compact in that you can get a lot of battery power in a building. So it could be a building size type object. The proposal is that take a site plan review. I think the rationale for site plan review, if I'm remembering right, is that there are conditions. I mean, basically the battery energy storage law is a site plan review process where they have to show that they've got the proper safety equipment and access, et cetera. So it's basically consistent to call that SPR. The debate, I think, would be whether that's allowed everywhere, or if we want to exclude, again, a house-sized energy storage object in any of our districts. Okay, I wish Will were here. And I'm not hearing objections, so we'll do that. I think that all is fine based on our research for the law. There are concerns about fire access, but when properly met, like any other well-regulated thing, they are probably fine. I think in some of the hamlets, it'll be difficult to meet the access requirements, so they won't actually be there. Next, we have bed and breakfast and short-term rentals. Proposal is to change some of the special use permits to simply, for actually all of them, to simply permitted. Let's hear some talk about that.
I have questions about short-term rentals. I need to look at the definition again, exactly what it means. And I don't have a lot of objections to bed and breakfast because I think they're pretty well regulated. A bed and breakfast has to have an innkeeper on site. But short-term rentals like Airbnbs in many places have become completely unregulated hotels. And they can be a terrible nuisance, you know, large, loud parties at night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my concern about the kind of Airbnb usage. And I just need to look at the definition of what we're talking about when we say short-term rental.
Well, but I think that Airbnb by definition would be a short-term rental, I'm guessing. And although I think there are places that have had problems with them, they're usually places that are popular vacation destinations and not exactly Town of Caroline. So I would like to permit those things in all those areas because they are very real sources or income for a number of people. And don't see-
I agree with that. I'd like to speak in favor of Ps across the board for all districts for this. If, decades down the road, it turns into, party city that the residents don't like, the zoning law can be amended. But I think at this point in what we're looking at in terms of the town of Caroline, permitting it in all districts seems appropriate to me.
And I'm just gonna, I know that you guys know this, but, SUP, of course, does mean permitted in all districts, right? All it means is whether you have to do some kind of review before getting, going into operation. So it's not like SUP says it's not permitted. The question is whether anyone looks at the plan, and Nan has suggested in the past, there have been some issues with noise or traffic or whatever. And so the SUP is there, simply there, so that someone is at least taking a look at the plan to make sure it doesn't negatively impact neighbors. So I'm ambivalent because I certainly want these things to operate. I think an SUP is not going to prevent them from operating, and potentially could eliminate problems for neighbors. But it depends. And I also wonder, along the lines of what Bob just said, if it becomes a problem, you can change the zoning law, but that can't, I assume, retroactively affect a use that's in place. So I don't know what would happen then to an existing short-term rental if we said, oh, now we want to put these requirements on noise or parking or something. I'm uneducated on that point. So I'm a little nervous about a simple P, but I'm willing to go with it, whatever the majority opinion is.
Yeah, I kind of agree with P's across the board myself.
I agree with P's across the board. I don't think the Airbnb situation here is that intense. And I don't, what would you, let's say you decided you wanted to rent your house out on Airbnb and you had to go through an SUP, what would they be looking at? Would you have to agree to not rent it for a certain number of weekends, or I'm not clear on that.
Nan, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's an entirely up to the town on what the policy is. So the most communities that have special use permits for those have an associated set of requirements. So it might be that they look at parking. They might look at many of them have inspections, access, make sure there's water and septic systems that are working. Some communities require them to be owner occupied, others don't. So it would, what you would review for is up to you and what you think you need to take a look at. So
Yeah, I think the question more, what kinds of things might one want to look out for? Because I agree it's up to us, but we don't know enough. So
yeah, I mean, it's typically parking. A lot of times they don't have parking. If they have 5 cars lined up, they parked in the street. A lot of times they have they turn into like a wedding venue or a party event, event space that happens to be at like a big property so it turns out to be something more. So some communities regulate them and look at, the kind of side activities that can occur with a short-term rental. So, the same kind of things that we look at with other things, traffic and noise and nuisances, and those are the big ones. Safety. I mean, the short-term rentals, there have been situations where people have, it's been an unsafe house and no fire alarms, smoke detectors, so there's a range of things that you can look at, from pure just safety, health and safety, to nuisance kinds of things.
Okay, and Jean has her hand up. So Jean? You probably, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right.
Oh, just to say, the city of Ithaca has an apartment rental law that, says that you have to get a permit in order to rent out a room in your house. And then that permit requires they have smoke detectors and the window to jump out of and all of that other stuff. It's a separate law. It's not part of the zoning regulation. Property maintenance laws.
Okay.
Often require this sort of stuff.
So that'd be a different way to get the safety aspect.
That's
Okay,
a different way to kind of approach that, should it be a problem in the future.
All right, Jean had her hand up, and I think she is. Yeah, you're muted now.
Withdraw my objections, and from what
Okay.
Oh, I was trying to unmute.
Okay, now you are somehow. I'm hearing you at least. Okay, so we hear that you have withdraw your objection, and I'm definitely hearing a majority of support for changing this to P. So that's what will happen. All right, I'll fix the formatting later. Okay, so that gets us down to campground, camping units, etc. There's no changes there. So the next line with changes is the car wash.
Oh, wait, there's a change.
Oh,
Bill.
sorry. Okay.
In that Barb had suggested separating retreat center from campground and camping units. So that was crossed out, and retreat center is further down
Okay.
and probably has different.
Sure. Yeah, we'll take a look at that when we get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any objection to having a separate line for retreat center?
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay, there we go. Great. Thanks for noticing that, Michelle. So yeah, car wash. So I know that we had some, thoughts about, water resources, et cetera. And I see there's a proposal to change the two allowed districts, which were going to be the commercial, the center of Brookendale and the commercial district, from a special use permit to an X. So I'm not sure where this is coming from. Who wants to talk about this?
Can we go
I
back
can say
to campground?
Pardon?
My note, can I just finish? My note was that Ernie suggested that car washes only be allowed when there's a public sewer. So that's what that reflects. So that's, since we have no public sewers, then they would not be allowed anywhere.
Okay. Ernie, you want to say something about that?
They just put out a ton of polluted water, and I just don't think, your average septic system is going to work for that. So, there's, maybe I'm wrong. I don't have any research to back that up, but I do know that, it's, there's only so much you can pump into the ground. I mean, the normal septic system, residential septic system, is designed for 350 gallons of water a day. A car wash can be going through 10 times that. So if they want to put in a 10 times that size septic system, I guess it would just, I don't know that we need to prohibit it. I think that it just, defies common sense that anybody would put one of these in here or be allowed to. I don't know how that works. I can do some more research on that.
The one Candor, I have no idea what.
I have no idea what goes on over there. It's
So-
like going straight into the catatonic, it's just,
Well, so
Yeah.
Ernie, I hear you, and I think that makes eminent sense, but again, I think that the counter argument is, okay, so if we can prove to the review board that we can handle our waste, why would you prevent us? So either because we have a large enough one, or we treat it and recycle the water or whatever, and I don't know what options are out there. So
Let's table this one for a second. I got a good buddy who's a
Okay.
car wash guy.
Awesome. All right,
Can
so
we-
we will postpone on that till we get some more info.
Can we back up to camping for a second?
Yes, one sec. I just had to write a note down. Postpone car wash. Okay, go ahead. We are back up to the campground.
Yeah, I'm just
Camping
wondering
units.
about, since it says campground units, SUP and,
And I'm gonna bring this down so you can maybe still just see. Yeah, there we go.
ag and rural, so it's.
Yeah, sorry, I can't get all. Let me change my
It's
size.
not allowed anywhere else across the board. I'm just wondering because, this glamping or whatever they call it is turning into a pretty popular thing. It's not huge, but it's, if you have a piece of property and you could put up a lean-to, I guess it would come under that category, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And the question is, would you want that in
Right.
Brookendale, Slaterville, Speedsville?
Yeah, I mean, it's allowed obviously in most of the town because it's here in the ag district.
It's in the ag
Yeah,
rural, so that's most of the town?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think of glamping as, you do that in a rural area. You don't do it in a neighborhood.
Well, they have one at the fancy hotel
Right.
in Ithaca there, I
Yep,
don't.
and it goes on to the back of the park.
Right.
It's pretty good size.
Can't see it's in there.
I don't want to prolong a discussion that maybe doesn't need to happen. I'm fine with this, but I do wonder, what would be the problem with, say, someone in the Beesimer Hamlet doing this? Which is kind of a nice residential open area.
Yeah,
I-
I think that it gets construed into, kind of setting up a tent city, at some point.
I think it depends on the scale, if it was one glamping tent is very different than 50 glamping tents or 50, campsites. So it depends on the scale that
Right.
it is.
All right, I'm gonna take my advice and not stress about getting everything exactly right and perfect this time. I'm fine with going with it this way, and if there are a lot of residents that, hey, I would really like to be able to have something with 2 tents in my, the back 10 acres of my property, then we can make a modification once we get that feedback. Does anybody want to change this line, or given that it's allowed in the ag rural district, are we okay with the campground as it is?
Guess we can leave it the way it is.
All right. 9:15, we have just 2 things on this sheet. So let's see if we can finish this page and then we'll move on to the final items of our agenda. And if we get hung up, then we will bail because, we do have a few more things we need to deal with and it is getting to be the pumpkin hour. Car and motorized sales, the suggestion had been to add, let me just make this yet a little smaller. Let's go to 100%. Okay. So hopefully you guys can still read that. It might be getting hard on some of the screens, but that car motorized sales not allowed in the ag rural and hamlet, but there's a proposal to use them with SPR in Slaterville Springs and with SPR in Caroline Center and Speedsville. And they already are listed as SPR in Brookendale, the center of Brookendale and the large commercial district. So the change would be to add Caroline Center, Speedsville, and Slaterville Springs to allowed for car and motorized sales. Any discussion of that? Any objection to making the change?
No, but here we go again. How about on Route 79? In the hamlet, Beesimer.
Yeah.
Seems like.
And I know, I mean, again, and initially, you're right. Beesimer is on Route 79, but we can have the vote. I'm assuming the committee in general still wants to keep that as a more residential, even though it's along Route 79. But again, Bruce is proposing the XB and SPR. Anyone want to second his motion to make that change? All right, so we'll leave that as is. Church or religious use, I mean, that's just SPR across the board because we actually can't do anything, is my understanding. If they are protected things, but we are allowed to, I guess, have some, again, some level of looking at the layout, et cetera, of the lot. But the actual activity use is allowed everywhere. And then I think the only other thing here is the brewery, winery, cidery, or distillery. And because it was a new creation of West Sladeville, Michelle took a stab at what might be the use there, which would be treated more like Bessemer and disallow that use in West Sladeville. So discussion of that. Any objection to keeping an X in that column?
West Sladeville,
West Sladeville.
I would tend to allow it there. I don't know why, but it just seems different than Bessemer.
I think I would too.
Anybody else want to speak for or against that change?
Yeah, I'll speak for it.
Okay, so hearing several votes for it, let me just say, is there anyone who is opposed to making that SPR rather than X? Okay. And we have made that change. Okay, I suggest that it's now 9:20. It's time to call a halt to the use table. What we have left is, oh goodness, a whole nother
47 pages.
Yeah, to 2.5 pages of uses. Okay, well, we are slow and steady wins the race, but that is going to inform part of our next discussion, excuse me. First, we have a discussion of the next meeting dates, then we have a discussion of the public meeting, and then we have Bruce wanting to speak, address the board for the commission for a few minutes.
Bill,
So-
could I just speak? Could I just
Yes.
interrupt and speak just for 1 minute?
No, absolutely not. We have no time. Yes, go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry, I misplaced my notes at the very beginning of the meeting, and I forgot to announce what I think most of you know, but it might not be known publicly, that Will Lawrence submitted her resignation from the zoning commission to Jean this week. Still wants to stay on the planning board, but for personal reasons, she just couldn't handle the load, the workload. So I just wanted to let everybody know that if you hadn't already realized. And I really apologize for not mentioning this at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. I'll send you a demerit for that, but thank you for filling us in. Okay, so the next meeting dates as listed on the agenda are April 11th and 25th, which I believe are actually Mondays. The probably second and fourth Mondays in April. And I believe there was an issue with the 12th or not. So someone talked to me about dates. Yes, Michelle.
Wait, are you saying the next meeting, the dates for the zoning commission meetings, or are these?
Yes.
For the?
Yeah,
Why
that's
aren't
what.
we Why aren't we having another one in March?
Well, that's another question. I thought we were, but it wasn't here in the agenda, but I think that's what we're discussing. I think we are supposed to have one on the 22nd of March.
Okay.
And so is there any reason we don't have one on the 22nd of March? Because it's not listed here. Okay, so we will have a meeting on the 22nd of
Yes.
March.
Yes,
Okay,
there is.
Jean. Okay.
No, there is. Mark Whitmer got in touch with me and said that there's a trial that day using the town hall, and they expect it to go into the evening. And so he suggested that we have this, if we could, some other time that week. And I know that Tim could not meet on Monday, but could meet on Thursday. So my suggestion is that we meet on the 24th of March, if that works for people.
Okay, and Marcus, is it still true that the trial is scheduled for the 22nd of March?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. The date of the trial is April 12th. So that was the date.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood So
Okay,
March 22nd is fine.
it's
Okay.
okay, yeah,
But then the next one would normally be April 12th, I think, and it can't be on April 12th.
Okay, so for
Is that
that,
right?
yes,
that's
sounds
right,
right.
Jane.
Yeah, so that could move to April 14th.
All right,
Fine with me.
so
March 22nd is a Tuesday.
Bruce, what'd you say?
So March 22nd is a Tuesday then.
Yes, so that's fine.
Yes.
We're meeting on March 22nd, a Tuesday, and the question is whether folks are available on Thursday, April 14th, since we can't use the town hall on the 12th. Does anyone have a problem with the 14th?
My schedule's going to be up in the air at that time, so I can't say.
Okay. I'd say that sounds pretty good, so let's go with April 14th. And then would we go back to our normal fourth Thursday or whatever it is for the second meeting in April? I assume, which would be, I think, April 26th, am I right? No, I'm not right.
That's right.
Okay. Well, yes, 26th. Okay, so we'll do April 26th. So what I have now is March 22nd, April 14th, and April 26th for our next 3 meetings.
Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday.
Yes, for those who like rhythm.
Okay.
All right.
Down on the 14th, but I'll try to be on Zoom, so.
Okay, yeah, that would be great, because it looks like Michelle may also have an issue. And so I would say we can also bring this up again at the next meeting, because if people's schedules have firmed up and realize the 14th is bad, then let's pick a different time. All right. All right, so last 2 things. So the public meeting, when and how, and just 5 minutes allotted for that, which is probably right, because we're not going to solve all those problems. What do people want to say about another public information meeting? Again, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because then it's easier for me to see everybody. And there, great. So Jean, you want to talk?
Yeah, I would say we are not, people suggested last time that we needed to get through these before we set a public meeting. So I'd like at least to get through this and see where we think it will take us to the uses. So I don't think we're ready to talk about it yet, unfortunately.
Okay, I agree. So I'm going to at least toss out for group discussion, because we've had some email talk about it. You know, there is no reason to rush the zoning plan, right? We want to make sure we give it careful, thorough examination and do a good job on it. On the other hand, I am concerned because, as we've discussed, there seems to be a certain level of this draft is confusing. I don't understand this part. This part is telling me I have to do X, and it doesn't. So I would love to have a chance to get information out into the public's hand as soon as possible. So I would say, what do people think about trying to have an extra meeting or 2 to get through just the use table? Because if it takes us another 3 meetings to do the use table, that's not till the end of April. And so a public information meeting would not be until May, April, May. Is that okay? Do we think we should get something into the public's hands before that time? 2 minutes, and then we're going to go on to Bruce. What do people say?
We only have 2 more pages on the use table.
About 2.5.
We got through like 2 tonight.
Maybe, I'm not sure. Was it 2? It was 2. I thought it was 1. So maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was just 1.
Yeah, no, how many did we get through, Ernie? I was thinking it was 2, but
maybe you're right. Let me just take a look, because that would be great. That would make me feel better.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, your mileage may vary. Let's see. Oh, let's see. So we started auto body repair shop. No, we did 1 page, but we also backed up and did some of the previous pages over again because people wanted to spend some, and we only really allotted, we had about 40 minutes at most on it because the other stuff took us a long time. So if we had a meeting that focused more on it, yes, maybe I was being overly pessimistic. So good point, Bruce.
just thinking
Maybe we can get it done next meeting. I don't know, maybe.
I don't know how many changes are on the next pages either, so.
Yeah. Shall we just leave it at that? We'll try it next meeting. Michelle, go ahead, sorry.
I would be willing to have an extra meeting just to get through this part, but I've always been more like that. So but I'll just say, I'd like to get through a section, unless, at the next meeting, you're just going to bear down and not do all this other stuff, because we really didn't start working on it until what, 8:30 or something? I mean, so.
It was probably almost 8:40, 8:45.
Yeah.
And part of that was there were some key things to talk about, left over from other things. And so, yeah, that seems reasonable to me, that let's see how it goes next meeting, which is kind of what we said last meeting, but that will be a meeting more focused just on the use table. I think we'll have less other stuff coming up. We do have to get to the dimensions table as well, I warn you all. But
I think that's going to take a long time. That's why I'm just going to say, for the record, I wouldn't mind having another meeting, but
yeah.
Anyway.
So I guess what I will say, well, let's visit that decision next meeting. And that, yes, I think everyone think hard about, how you feel about getting the meeting in there. After the next meeting.
It's too late to have another meeting next week. Is that the case? We have to do this with a certain amount of forethought.
I think the official public notice period is about 3 days, so we could decide tomorrow to hold a meeting next week. And
as spring comes and summer comes, I think we're all going to be less able to meet, less willing. I don't know. I would do a meeting next week if that was the help.
Me too.
Jean?
I would do one next week too.
I agree. I think we owe it to the public to get the use table and the dimensions table and the narratives that go out to that, go with those. I think we owe it to our residents to get that out and have an opportunity for an informational meeting about those, because we know, based on this conversation, we know that what we've posted from December 28th is not where this is heading. And it's very important to get corrections out into so that the residents understand what we're now proposing, given that we've had more input from people in the community, and also provide an opportunity for residents to give even more input sooner rather than later. So I'm strongly in favor of another meeting with the agenda being only focusing on the use and dimension tables and privilege of the floor.
Okay, so I think I saw an approval. Okay, a thumbs up from Jean. If we did 1 week, that would be the 15th. Is that what people would like to do? Stick with a Tuesday, or do we want a different day next week? Everyone,
Tuesday.
Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up for next Tuesday. Okay, Jean, I'm not sure when you're back. I can certainly tell Mark and Velvet to set the machinery in motion to create that meeting.
I'll take care of that, Bill.
I'll still be away. I can do the meeting, but I'll do the agenda. I'll get that out.
Okay, all right. And while we have everyone here, are we going to stick with the 7:15 time or move to a 7 o'clock time? 7:30, 7:37?
7:15.
7:15.
Okay, no changes, 7:15, great. Okay, last on the agenda, Bruce asked for some time to address us. So go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I got probably everybody on the zoning commission read my emails to Jean and everybody as far as what happened with Vale's
Will and Val.
Yeah.
And Will.
Yeah.
So that's basically all I was going to bring up, because I had a real problem with what Vale had said as far as he had discussed with Mark to keep his foot in the door and to definitely try to vote at the crucial time. And he would have to try to find a way to do it by proxy. To me, it just doesn't seem right. I just don't like what was said. I don't like how it was said. And I had also said multiple times before, when we lost our first member, that maybe we should consider getting somebody else to get on the zoning commission. And I've said it like 3 different times, and every time it's been poo-pooed, and we could have possibly a farmer or somebody that had applied and didn't get accepted. But, whether they could catch up or not, I think we're still in the infancy of this. So I think it is a possibility they could catch up. But I'm just open for suggestions, but I really, truly was kind of disgusted with what he said and the way he said it. It just doesn't make sense to me. That is not, isn't the way it should have been said. And he hasn't.
Well, I'm just gonna butt in here. I don't know what Val said, but I agree that I do think it is inappropriate that he would have I mean, if it comes down to a vote as to whether we approve this thing as a kind of a non-participant in this battle, that, I don't know that he gets to have a vote. I certainly welcome any participation that he or any other member of the public can have in this. At the same time, I think we should maybe, consider opening up the commission to getting some more members, because at some point somebody's going to drop out and we're not going to have a commission anymore. But there's been a lot of water over the dam already, so it may be a little hard for someone to catch up. And I don't know how that works, either legally or anything else. I mean, we kind of all got press ganged into this in the first place.
Ernie, I've never arm wrestled someone so hard as when I tried to get you to reply to this thing.
Well, as far as what Bill said, this is what Bill said.
Yeah.
Well, so what I will say to that is, so I understand the reservations about Val voting, for example, and I think that that's a valid concern to bring up. I just urge you, Bruce, to not be disgusted. I think what Val was trying to do was to be a good citizen and say, I'll help out as much as I can. Not, oh, I get this special privilege or something. I think he was trying to be helpful. And if we find it not helpful to have him simply reading our minutes, reading our emails, and then swooping in sometime to do something later, fine. But I don't think he was trying to be mean or evil or disgusting or anything. He was, I think, honestly trying to say, hey, I'm on sabbatical, I'm out of the country, but I'll do what I can to help the effort. But I agree that maybe it would not be appropriate for him to vote. And I think this meeting's not the time to decide that, but I think that's a good point to bring up. And I do think that I would suggest to the town board that they indeed get some advice from our lawyer on the few that soldier on.
He's a very educated person, and to use that wording, keep my foot in the door and definitely try to vote at the crucial time. And I guess we would have to find a way to do it by proxy. Come on. To me, it threw me.
I want to butt in.
I could have worded it a hell of a lot better, and I'm not near as intelligent as that man.
I'm gonna.
That's Michelle.
First of all, Bruce, sometimes, your language isn't great either. So sometimes people say things that they don't mean. So I just want to put that out there. And second, Val is a very educated person. And if he is in fact paying attention to all this stuff, I think that's really valuable. I mean, the people that have resigned, say Will and Evie, I don't believe they are continuing to keep track of what's going on. So I welcome Val's input. I'm on the fence about whether he should vote, but I think his intentions were entirely to be helpful. And again, if he's been wading through all the stuff that we've been wading through, more power to him. And as far as getting somebody else on this committee, I don't believe that somebody else has also been wading through all the stuff that we've been wading through and all the research that we've been doing. And I don't think it would be helpful to get somebody that's just going to impede our progress. Just for the trying to be,
nobody wants to get somebody that will impede it. That's
well,
not the reason to get somebody.
Okay.
And as far as wading through this, don't you think that if he was wading through this, he would have made a discuss, he would have at least made a comment somewhere along the line in the last.
All right, so I will, so I think we'll call it there, but I will share that Val has sent me an email a while back, not recently, but a few weeks ago, with some comments. I will share also, I didn't find them helpful enough that I shared them with all of you, but it's not like he hasn't paid any attention whatsoever. So just to defend Val's honor, I'm going to put that out there. Michelle, finish. If anyone else besides me or Bruce or Ernie wants to speak, they can, and then I think we're going to adjourn the meeting. So Michelle.
I'm just gonna say, at the rate we're going, he will have plenty of time to get back and weigh in and be here in plenty of time to vote. Trust me.
I'd just like to remind everybody that the membership of the zoning commission is appointed by the town board. And so I hope that, I know that our town board liaison has been listening to this, and I hope we would just all put this in the hands of the town board to make the decisions, that any decisions that need to be made about membership going forward.
Oh, noted.
And that, okay, great. And then Jean and we'll even everybody, I think.
I guess I took what Val wrote in a different way. And I took it that he was trying to keep up with this. I've written back to him and suggested that he and I do the work together that Will and I were going to do, and that I'm going to send him off that and asking him to comment on that. I just took it as in an entirely different way than Bruce took it. And, you know, reading something that someone wrote, it can be open to interpretation. And I want to just second what Barbara said and what I sent out to all of you. It is not my decision or any of our decision about whether the town board adds people to the zoning commission or not. It's their decision. We can tell them what we think, and I think we all sort of just did that, but it's not our decision. Thank you.
All right, and before we adjourn, I want to ask, I'm a newbie at Zoom in some ways. I don't know how to copy the chat. I know there's been some stuff in chat. Is there someone?
I copied the whole thing,
Great, thank
Bill,
you.
so I'll send it along to folks.
Okay, good, because I don't know how to do that. So, all right, I think we've gotten through what is worth getting through tonight, what we have the brain power to do. So, does someone like to move an adjournment?
So moved.
And seconded. All right, and so I think, is there anyone who does not want to adjourn now? Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene 1 week from tonight at 7:15.
No, it came in. No.
All right.
Thank you for sharing,
Good
Bill.
night, all. Oh, you're
Bye.
all welcome.
Have
Have a good night.
That Michelle actually sent to us separately. She said, I took this out.
And yeah.